With that, we are all set for the next panel discussion. I request everyone to please take your seats and keep your mobile phones on silent to avoid any disturbances. Ladies and gentlemen, the next panel discussion is centered around developing advanced supply chain and warehouses, key developments and opportunities. And in this discussion, we'll be discussing about leveraging automation and robotics to enhance supply chain efficiency, adopting data-driven support mechanisms to enhance the capabilities of logistics service provider, leveraging technology for risk detection and mitigation, grading and advancing digitization and new technologies in inventory management, material handling and packaging, focusing on workforce excellence, addressing the current need, role of PM Gati Shakti and national logistics policy for reducing logistics cost and enhancing efficiency. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I request everyone to please settle down so that we can get started with the next session. Requesting our lovely audience to please take their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session is centered around developing advanced supply chain and warehouses, key developments and opportunities. And it gives me immense pleasure to invite our eminent speakers, Mr. Manu Raj Bhalla, President, Warehousing Association of India, WAI, Ms. Poonam Munjal, Professor, National Council of Applied Economic Research, Mr. Anil Syal, President, Safe Express Private Limited, Mr. Satish Shukla, Co-founder, Adverb, Mr. Abhishek Prakash Rao, Founder and CEO, Center of Standards and Ratings in Logistics and Supply Chain, Mr. Nikhil Botra, Executive Director, EPAG Prefab, Dr. Firozia Hussain, CSO, Delivery. And as the moderator, it gives me immense pleasure to invite Ms. Nimisha Agarwal, Director, Transport and Logistics, PwC. Ladies and gentlemen, requesting everyone to please settle down, and I again extend a very warm welcome to all our panelists and our moderators. I request everyone to please take their seats so that we can get started. Further discussions can be taken up during the lunch session. I request our eminent speakers to please settle down. I invite our speakers to please join us on the dais. We have with us Mr. Manu Raj Bhalla, Ms. Poonam Munjal, Mr. Anil Syal, Mr. Satish Shukla, Mr. Abhishek Prakash Rao, Mr. Nikhil Botra, Dr. Firozia Hussain. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panelists. We have an eminent panel with us, and we'll be discussing developing advanced supply chain and warehouses, key developments and opportunities. And without further ado, I now hand over to our moderator, Ms. Nimisha Agarwal, to start with the proceedings. Over to you, ma'am.
Very good afternoon to everyone, and I hope you are enjoying this conference today. Happy to be part of this very interesting conference and be a moderator to this very distinguished panel. I hope we can keep this as a very interesting discussion for you. I think the topic of our discussion today is developing advanced supply chain and warehouses, key developments and opportunities. So I think it will be a mix of discussion around both logistics and warehousing. So maybe I can start with Mr. Syal, who's president of Safe Express. So sir, as an express logistics service provider, how have data-driven mechanisms, automation, digitalization impacted or helped your business operations? if you could, give us some thoughts around that.
So the short answer for that is, I think efficiencies have gone up. Critically, most of the digitalization that we have executed, because of the size of business that we have, we are handling currently close to about, I think 1.6 crores at last count, 1.6 crore packages every month, close to about 1.5 million consignments every month. Now, with that kind of size, there was but no option to ensure that there's sufficient amount of automation, there's sufficient amount of digitalization that has been put in place. So we've ended up investing a decent amount of resources in our tech backbone to ensure that all this is seamlessly flowing through our network across India. At about 30,000 pin codes that we service, 11,500 trucks, they all have to seamlessly stitch and work on a mesh network that we've ended up creating. Now, on one hand, there is certain amount of automation mechanics that have come through, and then there's another end which is digitalization. The digitalization is multi-fold. One is internal to Safe Express, where we've been able to ensure that our workflow is smooth in every aspect. And then there's another one which is our user interface with our clients, where we've been able to synchronize with almost all our 20,000 corporate customers and more than a lakh and a half retail businesses, which are traders and small enterprises. Being a B2B company, we've got to ensure that. So there's a lot of interaction between our organization as a service provider and our users. So this is the other aspect of digitalization. So just to give you a couple of basic examples is, the e-invoicing, which is now seamless to our clients. Proof of deliveries management, to ensure that not only is it seamlessly flowing to our customers, but also ensuring that there's a reasonable amount of archiving capabilities for posterity. These are some elements of examples that I can give you from the client interface. And the last one is the administration, which is the governmental side. Specifically in the post-GST era, the government, surprisingly so, and pleasantly surprisingly so, is reasonably well geared now with the India tech backbone being such, where there's a good amount of synchronized operation possible. For example, e-way bill. Now this is all now seamless and electronic, with check posts and everything having come off. E-invoicing for our clients also is now online, sanitized and checked. So there's a reasonable amount of seamlessness that has come through. Now how that has all transferred on an operational side is, now things have become far more smoother, they've become far more efficient. Our network is now fully optimal on these elements. So there's not a direct interplay of monetary side on this, but there's a sufficient upside which is not only visible but has been encashed by not only Safe Express, but for that matter all our clients who are part of this chain.
That's great to hear that you've been able to actually apply technology both on the internal side for optimizing your own processes and functions, as well as for giving your customers a better user experience. So that's great to hear that you're actually already leveraging the benefits of technology as part of your business. Maybe my next question will be for Ms. Poonam Munjal. She's a professor at NCAER. Ma'am, what do you believe is the role of initiatives such as PM Gati Shakti Plan, the National Logistics Policy, in improving logistics efficiency of the country, and then towards achieving Viksit Bharat 2047?
Thanks, Nimisha. So I do not have an industry perspective. I'm coming from an economic think tank. I can talk as an economist or a researcher. So I think, I mean, through the government initiatives like PM Gati Shakti and National Master Plan that you are talking about. So obviously there is a huge, potential for logistics industry. And I mean, looking at the, because we are also users of a lot of data which are available from government sources, there is no dearth of, some kind of skill development programs and skill training programs that government, and there are a lot of initiatives that government has, and industry also is making a lot of effort in making the people employable enough for the logistics sector. I mean, talking about the skill training, as I said, there are a lot of initiatives from the government side, and through the lot of, I'm not figuring out the names of the schemes, but some schemes which are run by the NSDC, and we know that there is a huge supply of people, who are the potential employable people in logistics industry. And on the other hand, logistics also, I mean, the sector itself is, it shows a huge demand of people. But somehow there is a mismatch between the two. Perhaps, the supply is not of that quality which is required for the industry. So some kind of balance between the two is really important. Given the potential, and as what we had submitted a report on logistics cost to the government, DPIIT recently, we found that logistics contributes about 8% to the, I mean, not contributes, but as a percent to GDP, it's about 8%. So that shows the huge potential of the sector, and given the PM Gati Shakti and National Master Plan, I think that shows huge potential which one should really reap benefits of.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, from your perspective, ma'am, there is a skill mismatch or a gap. And I think this is a topic we will bring in the later part of our discussion as well, where we will, understand from some of the industry players also what kind of challenges they face and how can workforce excellence be improved in the logistics space, especially as we are seeing more technology adoption. So there will need to be a greater upskilling of the workforce to be able to handle technologically advanced equipments and warehouses and other things. So thank you so much for that. Maybe next question for Dr. Feroz Zia Hussain, who is the Chief Security Officer at Delivery. Sir, again, something around technology, but how do you see the advancement in technology supporting the secure transport and delivery of goods in our country? So maybe that's something we would like to understand from your perspective.
Thank you. I'll slightly digress from the question for a minute, possible. Okay. भारत देश की उन्नति और प्रगति का I think a very important part is definitely logistics and warehousing. There's absolutely no doubts. मैं कल I foresee integrated command control center of MHA की foundation day था, तो one of the very important points was that 46% of digital payments happens in India globally. 46% of global, which means every second digital payment is from India. Can we say that about our warehouses? Is every second warehouse in India? Is every second B2B package in India? No, we are way far. That means basically, though as a country we've managed to handle some things much better than others, somehow in this space of logistics and warehousing, we have not been able to sort of overcome the challenges despite whether it's the PM Gati Shakti, whether it's the ULIP, whether it's the enormous improvements which have been made in the roads or in the GST transactions and so many other things. Now, if I would go into the some of the key issues, see, one of the basic things is B2B movement. If we consider, we still have to carry a lot of paperwork. It is not paperless. I think everyone in the transporters or from the manufacturer side, now for this, a lot of concerted effort will have to go in, whether it's from the manufacturers, whether it is from the consumers, the clients, the warehouses, the transporters, and the government guidelines. So this is really important. I mean, this is just one aspect of the whole thing, that is B2B movement paperless. I mean, being from delivery, you know, we deliver about 25 lakh packages every day, B2C, B2B and everything. So we do B2C where somehow the government has been able, in e-commerce sector, because of the involvement of various IT ministries and the others, and the push given, we have been able to make it fully transparent and seamless, by which definitely the growth of e-commerce has been really good. But the same thing, if we see in the other sectors, whether it's just what was being discussed today, that how do we do the licensing of the warehouses or the standardization of the warehouses, I mean, that itself is an issue because there's nothing digital around it. The moment we digitize all this and make things paperless, believe me, the whole system will move much, much faster, because then only it becomes scalable. Once it becomes scalable, you can always, find, the old thing is that a trucker, basically he has a sender and a receiver. Now you'd load the whole truck with one person's goods and deliver it, then there's no value addition. But unless the warehouses are having significant automation, only then it's possible to bring about the scales economics. See, on the safety security side, I think a lot has already been done by the government. Let's take just one example of ULIP, which allows you to integrate with FASTags all across the country, which means for every truck which is moving, you are able to see the date and time and the timestamps of where it has moved, how it has moved, when it has moved, etc., which tolls it has crossed. So that gives you an assurance that the safety and security of your goods is being monitored at each and every stage, and you are able to visibly view it, not only yourself, the client, the consumer, and everybody else. Well, I mean, there are various other things, especially for high-value cargo. I mean, like, there's something called large-size X-ray machines. There are these X-ray machines at the ports, at the airports, and we thought that we should do something innovative in it, because we move a lot of iPhones and things like that, which are 20 lakhs a box or 30 lakhs a small box. Now, so for that, something like X-rays all over the warehouses to be able to manage it effectively, large format X-ray machines with the ability to detect things. With that, you see, one is considering it as an expenditure. The other is, what we did is we started using those X-ray machines also to check for breakages and things like that. Because carton boxes, you receive carton boxes, but if you X-ray random carton boxes, you will find that a lot of stuff is already damaged. There are a lot of cutlery, crockery, etc. is already damaged inside it, and there's no need to transport it at all. So then you basically use the X-ray to give you a value add, and you combine various aspects of it. The other is on the road accidents. I think with the new ADAS and the vehicle manufacturers have been providing various types of functionalities on the trucks. A proper usage of that really helps. So being able to combine your skilled manpower, your control tower. So to have a proper integrated command control tower is the most important thing, I feel, because only then you can manage your trucks, your drivers, etc. properly, so that he is able to then navigate the length and breadth of the country in a much faster speed, and also safely and securely, which is the need of the hour. With that, let me...
No, absolutely, sir. I think you mentioned a very important point regarding use of control towers to help manage the tracking of the cargo, as well as, ensuring that, it's happening in a proper, planned manner. So I think the use of control towers is very important. and the control tower helps you monitor not just the cargo movement within your premises, but even outside. So I think both aspects you emphasized. And as well as in terms of, what needs to be done additionally is, of course, we need to digitize a lot of the paperwork that is still, being used in a manual form. So very, very helpful thoughts there, sir. I think my next question will be for Mr. Manuraj Bhalla. Sir, specific to, say, warehousing. So from an overall industry perspective, the warehousing industry, how do you see the adoption of technology by different warehouse developers and operators growing? I mean, how the penetration of technology in warehouses is, growing. So some perspective around that, since you are part of the association.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's a bittersweet story if you talk about automation and digitalization. I think India is still at the mechanization stage, and we're not really getting into the automation stage as quickly as we should be. And the reason is the cost of ownership, capex, right? It's a huge cost, and of course, large MNC companies, also companies which are of large scale, like and also captive warehouses, they are going for automation. Like Mr. Rujadit was also talking about Nestle. So it's for them, it's a cost to serve, it's a cost of doing business. But when you come to warehousing operators, let's say the 3PLs, it's a real challenge. So one is the cost of the equipment itself. Secondly is, if you want to scale, you generally have warehouses which are multi-user. So the needs of different customers and the different products they handle are quite different. So it is difficult to do entirely automation. So most people or the warehouse operators are still using mechanization. For example, I was with another industry leader recently, and of course they build the ASRS systems, and he says there is a huge increase in the number of queries for ASRS systems and micro ASRS systems. But there are so many other challenges around ASRS which we still have to fix, right? For example, you have multiple sizes of cartons or different barcode readers, different barcodes, and it's not being read by ASRS, so there's a lot of disruption and huge amount of, let's say, challenges, maintenance, etc. Having said that, like my friend was talking about digitization, yes, I think we're closer to making greater advances in digitization because TMS, WMS, IoT, and all those things have come in. I think it's also a bit of a mindset from the customer side. Okay. Now, as a 3PL service provider, we always make proposals to customers that, listen, here we are bringing in automated processes, we are bringing in mechanization and those kind of things. But the cost to serve is not recognized by the customer, and most of the time it's all about what is the cost per square foot or per pallet per CVM. People don't take into account what is the total cost. For example, if your turnaround time improves, or your orders are getting fulfilled on time and with 100% accuracy or 99% accuracy, that total cost of logistics and supply chain is not looked at by the same eyes, because in certain companies you have a transport manager, he's looking at his transportation costs, somebody else is the asset management, they are looking at differently, the warehousing people are looking at differently. Somebody needs to look at total supply chain, right? So I think we need to move away from a cost base to a value based assessment. Is this really bringing value? And once the customers change their mindset, I am assured that a large number of warehouses will embark on the journey both for automation, mechanization, as well as digitalization. So I think it's an ecosystem which needs to be completed by all the stakeholders. It can't be just the operator or just the developer or just the client. We need to work in partnership for the common objective, lower cost of logistics, faster turnaround times, more efficient, quick deliveries. People talk about quick commerce, etc. But all this is possible if we collaborate to a common objective, right? And then look at the value and not just the, per carton cost or per square foot cost or, things like that. Thank you.
No, absolutely, sir. I mean, couple of very important points that you highlighted, that we need to look at it in its totality, probably have a more longer term view to, see the value that adoption of technology can actually bring to the business. And I mean, as a first step, companies can do a quick cost benefit analysis also to, assess what this means for them. The other very important point, according to me, that you talked about was again on the standardization of the pellets or the units that are being stored in the warehouses that can help in making some of these technological advancements more effective, like the ASRS. Because today the pallets are not so standardized, so I think there's a need for more standardization, which we also discussed in some of the previous sessions in this conference. There's need for more standardization of the pellets and the cargo sizes. Maybe then I'll come to the next panelist. We have Mr. Satish Shukla, who is a co-founder of Adverb, which is into robotic technology. So again, continuing with the whole theme of technology adoption. Mr. Satish, from your perspective, what do you believe, how can robotic technology be used to enhance the productivity of warehouses? What is the impact that robotic technology typically has on the productivity? So if you could give us some thoughts around that.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity. So at Adverb, we build prime grade robotics and automation systems. These are basically agents of AI which help you store, pick, pack, sort, dispatch your items in the warehouse through fixed automation systems like automated storage and retrieval systems, or through flexible automation systems like a mobile robot or a sorting robot. And these systems can help you handle your unit load in the form of pallet, crates, cartons, also in the form of eaches, improve your productivity. So if you're doing a manual picking process in a warehouse, you would, with a pen and a paper, you would typically get a picking productivity of 60 to 100 picks per hour. If you're using a goods to person system, which is powered by a crate-based ASRS, you would be able to do anywhere between 800 to 1200 picks per hour, right? So that's the kind of productivity and efficiency increase that you can get. Now, as I was also listening about the mindset of the customer, what we have to understand in India, and this is based on our experience of delivering warehouse automation solutions and robotics in India since last 8 years, a lot of business cases do not make sense if you do not use robotics and automation solutions. So we did a project with HUL almost 3 years back, where there was a challenge on the company because there were a lot of e-commerce companies which were providing goods to these Kirana store owners, right? And they would do fulfillment twice a day, or if you want, they would do fulfillment thrice a day. And then they would also handle the long tail items. Now, this is a fundamental change for all the FMCG companies, where now you cannot push your item to that Kirana wala fellow, and now you would have to provide all the long tail SKUs in the form of eaches, and your delivery also has to happen within 24 hours from the time he places an order. Now, if you have 24 hours to deliver that order to the Kirana wala, and there is already so much discussion that is going on transportation, B2B transportation has paperwork, logistics, last mile logistics, how much time would you typically have to fulfill that order in a warehouse? Similarly, today we are talking about quick commerce, which has risen like a phoenix, and now the world, at least India, has come to accept that quick commerce is going to survive, and not only survive, but thrive. Today, it is being driven by only manpower in dark stores. But when it comes to efficiency and productivity, you would definitely need a solution that is powered by horizontal carousel or a goods to person system, how does automation actually help? And you are so in quick commerce, the game is of certain SKUs that keeps on getting repeated. You cannot keep 50,000, 60,000, 80,000 SKUs, unlike an overnight e-commerce delivery business. So based on the data that you have for last 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you sequence the items that needs to be picked, and then you keep it in a horizontal carousel, and you pick the order in 120 seconds, 180 seconds, 240 seconds. And then this can be replicated in small cities, small towns, tier 3 cities, tier 4 towns. And that can really bring disruption. Now, when we did a project with Lenskart, and when Lenskart says that if you order a glass, I'll deliver it within 24 hours. Now, how much time do you think they have to manufacture that glass, put that lens, pick it up in their warehouse, and then deliver it to your house? This cannot be done if you do not go for automation. So that is why we see a dichotomy where there are conventional businesses which think 4%, 5%, 8%, 12% year-on-year growth. बहुत मुश्किल है automation implement करना. And then there are disruptors. And just touching back on disruption, there's a very good example that I would definitely like to quote. So all of us worked at Asian Paints. In 2002, Asian Paints took a decision, we will have operatorless factories. Now, if they would have said कि अरे operatorless factory बनेगा, ROI कहाँ से आएगा, तो बिल्कुल काम नहीं करता. But the output today is that they have more than 50% market share. They have world's largest paint factories, which manufacture one of the best paint. There is a very famous conglomerate which is now trying to enter the paint business. Such is the barrier to entry that they've had to invest 10,000 crore just to make 100 SKUs. In the past, whenever this has been attempted, this has not ended well for such conglomerates. But that is the kind of value you add through automation. That is the kind of productivity gain you add through robotics and automation. And we have all heard the stories how Asian Paints can deliver the paint to any nook and corner of the country in every 4 hours, right? So there are business models where you cannot work without automation and robotics. And ultimately, it brings a very different level of efficiency, reliability, and accuracy, which Sir has said that a lot of time businesses do not compute that cost. But if you compute that cost, automation is the only solution. There is no other solution.
No, very educating, Mr. Satish. I mean, you just demonstrated it so many examples. So I think it would have been quite beneficial for the audience here to, get your perspective around that. So maybe we can just talk about like we discussed regarding the standards and ratings in logistics and warehousing sector. So maybe we can have Mr. Abhishek Prakash Rao, who is the founder and CEO of Center for Ratings and Standards in Logistics and Supply Chain. So we can have Mr. Abhishek share some of his views around how the operating standards for logistics infrastructure are being developed today in India. And how maybe aligned are they with global standards? So some thoughts around that.
Thank you, Nimisha. Honestly speaking, if you heard what Manu was talking about, he spoke about collaboration. This is one word I believe everyone on this stage has been speaking for a good 20 years, right? I have at least heard it for the last 25 years. And it therefore means that it has still not happened. And why is it not happening? Why is it that such a simple thing, which is collaboration between the user and the service provider, not happening? Why is it that cost to serve is not being spoken about? Why is it close to everybody's heart? Why is it not a transparent thing to talk about? The reason is trust. The reason is trust. The reason is value. How do I value you as a service provider? How do I trust you as a service provider? How much do I trust you? So if you actually see very, very old relationships that have, probably, let's say Safe Express having a relationship with a customer for 10, 15, 20 years, you will see that there's trust that has got built, and courtesy that the customer will open up his books, his cost to serve, and give that opportunity to Safe Express. But what about someone who is not a Safe Express? Safe Express is one, right? There are hundreds, thousands, lakhs of service providers who are also competing in the market. And whether we all, whether Anil likes it or not, one Safe Express cannot serve the entire market, right? So there are many competitors in this space. However, that trust is not yet built. Now, what are we trying to do here? What role are we trying to play here? Over the last couple of years now, I've spent about half of my career on the user side and the remaining half of my career on the service side, and I've realized how attitudes change the moment you're on that side and this side, how the world changes, right? It is more to do with respect, whether I respect you as a knowledgeable person, whether I respect you as a person of repute, whether I trust what you say, whether I believe what you say. Now, this is very difficult, right? Every company will not get a chance, every logistics service provider will not get a chance to work for 20 years with a particular customer and then say, okay, let's talk now about cost to serve. I think that's not fair. So there has to be a method by way of which, the logistics service provider first gets to know himself. Only when you know yourself, you will be able to convince somebody else who you are, right? If you look at typical RFQs that user companies come out with, right? Whether it's a Unilever, whether it's a Pladis, any company, it usually takes anywhere between 3 months to 7 months. It's a large process. You'll come up with RFI, you'll send it to 100 odd service providers, then you'll shortlist, then you'll probably get into the RFQ mode, and within the RFQ mode, you'll then finally have a handful of 20 odd service providers who will probably go for an online bid if you have that platform. And from there, you will decide who would be your top 5, 10 service providers and for different products. Now, again, is there trust? No. Someone could be a startup, someone could probably be a company that you know for long, but how do you know that that company is capable? And because you do not know that answer, what you end up doing is, you end up not trusting and yet getting into a partnership. Imagine how dangerous that is. And that is the reason why there is no collaboration ever. So in order to facilitate that collaboration, we said, let us, one, get the RFQ timeline reduced from 7 months to maybe a month. How to do that? So I think the classic example that we have is CRISIL. CRISIL does financial ratings for companies. ICRA does the same. CIBIL does give you a score if you want to apply for a loan in the bank, which means there is a report and that report is trusted. So we said, okay, let us give access of a similar report to various user companies based on several parameters, mandatory, non-mandatory, wish list, really required, etc., for each of the sectors, so that these user companies can, at a click of a button, say that, okay, I have an XYZ logistics provider at a rating B+, A+, whatever rating. Now I know what that service provider is capable of in terms of scorings and the parameters. And beyond this, for the logistics service provider, now they know where they stand. Now there is an opportunity for trust, because I know where I stand, you know where I stand, you know my value, I know my value. So giving them that platform to allow them to have capability check or a scorecard, so which will basically allow every user company to not only reduce their RFQ time, but also collaborate. Now you will decide, okay, now I can trust somebody because I have credible information. I know that deliveries, OTIF performance is 99.9%. This is audited by Bureau Veritas, certified, stamp sealed, whatever. Right? So this is what we intend to give as part of CSR LSC to the industry, where collaboration, Manu, finally might happen, or rather will happen. Thank you.
Absolutely. We hope, sir, that your Center for Ratings and Standards is able to, propagate their mission and, help companies should reduce their overall RFQ time that they are today investing in, the entire process of evaluating logistics service providers. I think that can really help in improving the overall efficiency of the process. I'll now come to Mr. Nikhil Bothra. He's the Executive Director of EPAC Prefab, which is into prefabricated construction. So maybe from his perspective, we would like to understand a bit more around how prefabricated construction of warehouses is helping in developing more efficiency in the construction of warehouses or the development of warehouses, and how that prefabricated engineering also helps in integrating technology right from the design stage. So maybe some thoughts around that.
Right. Thank you, Nimisha, for that. So, like Mr. Feroz said, India is still at a nascent stage, in terms of, the infrastructure that we have for logistics, for warehousing. If we go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, like we heard in the earlier presentations as well, discussions that, Modi city, like very close to Delhi, 60 kilometers from Delhi, still there is a gap between the deliveries, that we see in infrastructure here and we see in infrastructure in tier 2, tier 3 cities. So, last 7-8 years, what we have seen a paradigm shift in terms of the requirement of, infrastructure for warehousing. Earlier, there are a lot of warehouses, small warehouses, which are, RCC constructed warehouses. Now we are seeing a paradigm shift in the size of warehouses. We are building 500,000, 1 million square feet warehouses across every state. So, we are seeing a lot of consolidation in terms of logistics, in terms of overall ecosystem. So, if you see a big push from the government side in, in industrial development, in manufacturing sector. So once that is there, then they will need the whole ecosystem of deliveries, of, storing the material and delivering it to the customer at the right point within the timelines required. So, the PLI schemes, the Make in India, the PM Gati Shakti, all these are actually, pushing the infrastructure for manufacturing. And once the manufacturing setup is there, they will need the complete ecosystem to complete the supply chain. So for that, pre-engineered building, I think, is a no-brainer. I think almost every warehouse is now moved to a steel structure, pre-engineered steel structure. And we have seen a huge shift in the, classification of the warehouse and the type of warehouses that is being built. Integrating the automation, like everyone is saying, reducing the time of delivery process inside the warehouse is very, very critical. And we are designing warehouses where the complete structure is self-sufficient with the racking system and the cladding, completely insulated, temperature controlled. So there are a lot of still gaps between the requirement and the solutions that the world is offering, which India still has to adopt. So I think going forward, we can see a huge potential in terms of better efficiencies, reducing the timelines of construction. So reducing the capex cycle and increasing the revenue cycle is very, very important. The land costs are going way high in terms of, aggregating the land is getting so tough. So infrastructure, maximizing the space, having larger spans, having the heights, using the vertical spaces is very, very critical. So we are working, in a lot of ways how to design the building more efficiently, how to reduce the capex cost, how to reduce the time. So we've been asked to, construct 500,000 square feet of a warehouse in 3.5 months, 4 months. That's the timelines we are looking at. So we have to completely integrate the design, the deliveries, as well as the installations, and all the challenges that comes across through the delivery. So, we have been using a lot of automation in terms of the designing as well. So what we see is at least a 4 to 5 week window from the layout to the structural design approvals. So we are, reducing, we are having a lot of automation in terms of the designing, which is reducing the time almost to half. So we are now designing the complete structure within 6 to 7 days and delivering it and getting it approved, sitting across the table. So still, there are a lot of gaps, but the industry is working towards it, and we're for sure seeing a good potential in developing better infrastructure in the near future.
That's very interesting to hear, Mr. Nikhil, that with land cost becoming more and more premium, there are ways in which we can possibly optimize at least the construction cost, and as well as bring down the construction timeline. So that's really great to hear that we have some such solutions available in the market for this. Maybe in the interest of time, we will just have one last question, possibly for Mr. Anil Sayal. That will be around the whole Viksit Bharat goals. So for India to achieve the Viksit Bharat 2047 goals, how can logistics and warehousing prepare itself to become future ready to support the whole economic growth agenda?
So it's a rather big question, but if I may kind of use this to, give possibly a collective vision, because Viksit Bharat is a clarion call which has come from none less than the Prime Minister himself. And the Viksit Bharat mission or vision for 2047 is kind of little far out. So it's difficult for private sector to, easily carve out a plan which is that far sighted. But I think if we were to still kind of source through that vision, the one thing which I would believe would be most easier to kind of cohesively align with that vision is whenever we are taking organizational goals, whenever we are taking industry level goals, we start putting India first. So if as an organization we are creating, let's say if I was to internalize this to Safe Express, our first call has now become as to what does India need. It is not necessarily as to what do we as Safe Express need. So what do India need to be in 2047 is something that we are visualizing. I'm not very sure whether that is a very, kind of formed shape which has come through, but loose threads of how this is to be reaching there. I must compliment Miss Poonam. She comes from NCER. Like I'll just take one example, and there's one example. Part of that 2047 Viksit Bharat mission was to reduce logistics costs. If I was to just simply consider logistics supply chain as that sector, so to reduce logistics cost of our GDP. NCER has got the credit of being able to, clarify for most of us as to know our logistics costs was not the mythical 13, 14, 15% that everybody kept harping about. It was indeed somewhat lower at around 8.5%, 9%. Some of it was thanks to some policies that happened and some work that happened on the ground, but largely otherwise it was also a calculation-based clarity that it got. But it has now clarified the field as to this is where we stand. So it's a sanity check of where we stand and where we've got to reach. So that kind of path breakers are required for us to be able to realize as to what do we need to achieve. So APR mentioned that Safe Express cannot be the one single network across the country. Delivery, of course, can also not be one. So there has to be many deliveries, many Safe Expresses that got to create those networks around the country. Now, what in our view, and once again internalizing to Safe Express, we are, as I said, we consider India first, so we start looking at those calls. But then within that vision, we also want to clarify as to what does a logistics network mean. So it has to not only answer the issue of, say, sustainability, green logistics. It also has to keep the logistics cost angle in place. It also has to ensure that enough visibility and transparency is brought into the system, which is to use the technology stack from a industry 4.0, from a government 4.0 basis, which is, say, a ULIP based background, that has got created. So there are a lot of handles that need to, enable us to move in that direction. So I can speak for Safe Express for a moment and say, all right, this is what we have been trying to do. Look at, try and see in case we can create a India first vision, and that will, of course, if all of our organization start doing things which put India first, we'll automatically reach a goal which as a nation the government is building for us.
Great message, sir, there in terms of India first. I think that's a great way of, improving the collaboration between all the various stakeholders in the industry. If we start looking beyond just our own, companies or our own organizations and looking at the overall interests of India as a whole. So I would like to thank the panelists for a very engaging, yeah, maybe.
Can I just take 30
Yeah,
seconds?
absolutely.
And I'm really sorry, I missed your previous question totally. And I think it just stayed in my mind from the previous session when they were talking about, unskilled, not availability of skilled labor. I think it just stayed in my mind. So I completely misunderstood your previous question. But I mean, the point I was trying to make was that there are people who get trained. There are many, many people who get trained because of several schemes, and they do not find jobs. Whereas on the other side, industry keeps, looking for skilled workers, and they think that skilled workers are not available. So that was the kind of gap that I was talking about. So perhaps what industry could do is that they can collaborate with government and provide on-job trainings to these people, because I really think that there is something to do with the quality of training, which is why they are not meeting the requirement of the industry. So some kind of on-job training, maybe helping them in preparing the course content, and also maybe volunteering to become the trainers for these training institutes. So perhaps that kind of collaboration could be really good for the industry. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, please, sir.
We're doing this, so sorry, this is not working now. So just want to add 2 points on collaboration. So if we are as you know, the Warehousing Association of India wrote the standards for warehousing of India, which were launched by Prime Minister Modi as part of the National Logistics Policy. And that was a 2022, and now the 2024 is coming out. So when you talk about standardization, that is one part. The second part is that we are also going in for rating and grading of warehouses, and we have a project going on under DPIIT along with the Asian Development Bank to do the rating and grading of warehouses. The second thing that Y is involved in also is, you talked about standardization of operating processes and certification. So I'm personally part of a Bureau of Indian Standards. There's a sector, I think the sectoral committee 18 or something, which we are developing the BIS standards for warehousing operations. So when we talk about collaboration, I'm sure there's a lot to be done on the collaboration side. On the skilling side, ma'am, I want to say that Y is tied up with 2 organizations. One is 21CC. So we provide online training. And this is a outreach to leaders, to whoever would like to contribute their knowledge and help us build those modules for training and development. Please reach out to me. So we are certainly trying to bridge that gap. So one is the training, and then for the delivery of the physical training, we have tied up with the Army Welfare Placement Office, right, APW. So the content is being developed by industry leaders. We have a platform on 21CC, and for physical training at warehouses and delivery, we have tied up with the Army Welfare Placement. So there's a lot of activity happening. And this is a very exciting time to be a part of warehousing and logistics and supply chain. So thanks, I just thought I'll add that.
No, thank you, sir, for sharing that. If anyone has any questions, maybe you can directly reach out to any of the panelists. I think thank you everyone for a very patient listening, and thank you to all the panelists also. Thank you.
Indeed, a fantastic session that we just witnessed around developing advanced supply chain and warehouses. Let's have a huge round of applause for our panelist and speaker. I request you to please step forward for a group photograph. So ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed the panel discussion centered around developing advanced supply chain and warehouses, key developments and opportunities, where we discussed leveraging automation and robotics to enhance supply chain efficiency, adopting data-driven support mechanisms to enhance the capabilities of logistics service provider, and lots more. Let's have a huge round of applause for our moderator and our eminent panelists. Thank you.